I'm here with artist and inventor Brenda Schweder. And Brenda, you have a great way of making repeatable shapes, and then you can fill them in with all kinds of different things. And you're going to show us filigree.
Yes.
This is beautiful.
Yes, it's my version of faux filigree.
It's very clever.
Much bigger and much easier to do.
Well, it looks like you start out with this blank base,
Yes.
like in these top pieces here.
Yes.
And then you move to embellishing it.
Right. I call it
in
the
bottom
innards.
pieces.
Right. Yeah, there's sort of a three-step process. There's 5 frames that you could start with, and then I like having options, obviously. And then what we do is we move to the innards and create rings or spirals, that type of thing. And then you can just play with those and create different insides. As you can see on the bottom row, there's a lot of different ways to do that. And those might look a little bit overwhelming for someone who is not used to doing jewelry. So today we're going to show a little bit of an easier piece, of a minimal version.
Okay, so starter filigree.
Starter filigree,
Right.
I like that. Very
All
good.
right. So where do we begin?
Right, so I'm going to take this piece of dark annealed steel, and we have this set up here on the jig. And so then what we're going to do is basically take, this is 12-inch length, and we're going to take about 5 inches, 5.5 inches, and just trap it between here. If we wanted to know how much 5.5 is, we would take it down here to the little ruler that's on there. And again, I'm just hand tightening this, but I need to further tighten it with my screwdriver. Handy dandy screwdriver.
And then you have your really workable tension.
Yes,
On the piece.
absolutely.
And you could do this with any type of wire, but I know steel's your thing. So.
Steel's my thing. Yeah. So, but yes, we can work. You can work it with craft wire. You can use it with gold. I mean, that's the cool thing about it. So I'm just going to take my thumbs, my powerhouse thumbs, and then just really bend this up here, and really form it around this peg.
Okay, so you want a nice sharp point.
You do. And by doing that, you really get in there at that point of contact where you want that. And you can see here that basically we're just following these lines. This is called the wire path on the template. And I'm just going to come right around here and form this right around. I'm going to go all the way around. And I like to grab my pliers. You've seen me do this before. And we're just going to make sure everything is on the same plane and take up any slack that's in that. And that way that forms it directly around the peg instead of having any air that might distort that shape. Then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. And I'm also looking here to make sure that this span doesn't have any kinks in it. This one's a nice straight piece of wire. So I'm just going to go around the other way on this one. Again, keeping everything at that same plane. And didn't we call this smushing together? Was that our technical term?
I think so.
I think so. Smush and take up slack. Okay, so now I'm going to loosen my swivel lock. Just swivel it away, i.e. the name. And then I'm just going to pull this off of here. We're just basically doing the same thing as we've done before, but this time, what I didn't show before is that I'm going to take in any kind of pliers, I'm using a bent nose here, and I'm just going to change the orientation of this from a P to what we call a lollipop on top. And I'm just holding this perpendicular into that loop right there, and I'm going to take at that point of contact and just ever so slightly
Give it a kick.
bend that back, yeah. And so then I have 2 lollipops on top instead of 2 Ps.
And that way your pendant will hang straighter.
Yeah. And I think aesthetically, it's just, sometimes I'll leave it as a P depending on if I want something to just sort of go away like an, kind of an infinity pool type thing where it's just that lost edge. But sometimes, mostly, I like my lollipop on top.
Me too.
All right. So I'm just going to grab this, and I'm going to cut off those extra pieces of wire where they start to overlap.
Okay.
And by the way, this one, I like this shape because it kind of reminds me of a necktie. It's kind of fun.
I agree.
All right. So next thing we would do is just take it over to the bench block.
Okay.
But by the power of TV, I've already done that part.
Okay.
So we'll just already, assume that we've got this. But before that, these are all the innards that you can see that I've made for this one. These are a lot of different swirls or S swirls. And so I'll show you how to make those. You can see here, you're probably wondering why this is blue. And what I've done is I've just taken some painter's tape so that when I do this designing, everything is kind of, in place and I'm not fumbling with a number of pieces.
That is genius.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then what we like to do is just take then a little slider piece of wire. So I picked up this 20 gauge piece, and I am going to make a swirl here. What I like to do is start on this side, and I'm just following this form right here, and I'm going to go straight around. So no use for a swivel lock unless you really want one. Because this one's going to be a spiral, instead of going around only once, I'm keeping that fairly flat on there. I'm going to go around 1.5 times, and then I'm going to show you how to do a faux spiral.
Okay.
So this is all about being faux today, I guess, because we're doing faux filigree with a faux spiral.
I don't know. This doesn't seem very fake to me.
It's the real world, Brenda. Right. So right up here is where I want to cut that for that 1.5 times around, and I'm just cutting that very last piece. Okay, and then I'm just going to take a pliers that I can get down, and I'm going to grab just that end, and I'm going to so you're working from the outside in instead of, generally in our spirally jewelry world, we work from the inside out. But I'm just grabbing that and just kind of bringing that in. Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
And then I'm only taking the inside because I want to kind of preserve that outside edge too. And then just by kind of, swishing that down, smushing, we're getting that smushing again. I have a lovely spiral.
That looks good. And, this whole project is about filling the space.
Yeah.
So, like how you were saying, it would normally be building a spiral out. That's why we're building the spiral in. It's really taking up that negative space.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. That's really great.
Interesting.
That's why I have you.
Thanks for bringing me along for the ride.
But I know you get all this stuff. And this one, because it's so small, I'm just going to take and, just kind of do this and build it in a little bit with just my pliers, because that's a little bit small to be working around.
Sure.
But anyway, so, taking that to your bench block again, and so you've got some of those. This one I wanted to show you just how to do a ring, which is just making a big jump ring on the form. And I'm going to rob from this one just to show you, because we've got that one. So I can take this one here and just make that spiral into a jump ring of this size. I decided on a 5/8 inch. And in order to get that perfect to that size, I'm just taking, with steel wire you can do this, and just use like a chalk pencil to mark that. If you're not working with steel wire, you can use a superfine Sharpie to do the same thing. And that way, when I bring it up and off, I can see where my points are to get that perfect size jump ring.
Okay, and then you would just cut that guy?
Yep, I'm just going to cut that guy right here, right at my points. You can kind of see how they've already kind of slacked up. Whoops, that's a no-no. We were doing so well at holding both pieces, weren't we?
Well,
All right.
So these pieces then that you're creating for the inside of your shape, you're going to hammer all of these.
Yes, we hammer all of them.
And then you're going to put the painter's tape on.
Right. Yes, hammer all of them, put the painter's tape on. And I would say, my final process is to use the sealant, the archival sealant, but I would wait until the end to do that. But what you're going to do is you're going to take all your elements, hammer them, then add the painter's tape and create whatever type of design you have in the middle.
How do you bind them together?
That's what we're going to show next.
Okay.
And so I like to go just exactly right into the tape where I can. And I'm just going to use, this is the 28 gauge dark annealed steel. I like having this for binding because it's so nice to be able to work with and so easy to bind with. And so I'm just basically taking and holding this, and I've started one here, Katie, and I'm just going around, and I'm going to come right up through again through that tape and everything and just pull that tight. Sometimes I grab this and just get it nice and tight. And I just go around like 3 or 4 times and cut each one down again. So we've shown that part, right?
Right.
And then what we can do here is I've picked this one up here, and then you can add beads and things like that if you want. You can see in this case here that we even added like a little bit of a flower too at the
copper color one?
Yeah, the copper color one down there. And you don't have to use beads. You don't have to use other embellishments, but it just kind of gives you some options. Here's how to add a bead, is that I've just selected this fun check bead from my stash. And I've already done what I showed you on the other one of binding that area. And then this one, I'm just gonna put on there, and then I'm going to go around 2 pieces, okay? So this is kind of doing a 2-in-1. Save some time that way too. Let's see if I can get it up through there. Look at that. And just pull that.
That is awesome. I love this whole idea. Thank you, Brenda.
You're welcome.
Really, really
Thank you.
clever.
Thank
What a
you.
great way to learn how to do filigree as a beginner.